You have to be ready, but it should also scare you a little bit.
It should.
Because then I think you have the perfect balance. It's like, can I do this? Maybe. Yeah, I think I can. That's probably the perfect starting point.
Probably good enough. Yeah. Welcome back to Through Their Stride and part 2 of my conversation with Kristian Warwick. In this part, we talk a lot about jumping into things that are hard, even when you feel maybe if you're ready or you're not sure. In 2026, Kristian Warwick has a lot planned both for his running and for the Marathon podcast, with multiple collaborations with big marathons on shakeout runs and even some partnerships for his own podcast. It's going to be an exciting year for him. He had to take a little bit of a leap going in a lot of things that he's done on this podcast, and each leap has led to something better for his brand, for his podcast, and just it's been amazing to see his journey and to see what he's been able to transform just by taking those leaps one step at a time. Thank you so much again for listening. Thank you so much for sharing, for following. I really appreciate it, and I hope you like part 2 with Kristian Warwick. Okay, welcome back to Through Their Stride, part 2 of my conversation with Kristian Warwick. And Kristian, thank you so much again for agreeing to come back. I was not ready to leave the last conversation, so I'm glad we got to do this again.
No, thank you, Sam. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, so I think we left off talking about your training with Jonathan Green, and you said that's been going pretty well. And I guess my question around that was going to be, so you've been self-trained for a long time, and you've gotten had some experience from speed skating. Did you feel like it was hard to go from your own training and open up to somebody else's methods?
It's a good question. I think part of me when I asked John if he wanted to be my coach, I think part of me felt like that, like what you're saying. But then I also, if I look back at my whole career as an athlete, I always had a coach. I was never self-coached as a speed skater. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of just back to what I was used to. And these 2-3 months of working with John, I would say that it's kind of just made me realize even more how much I enjoy being coached and how my dedication kind of changes a bit by having a coach, just because I'm more committed and there's something to the fact that you have someone writing that plan for you and you feel like you have to show up. And something that I've been reflecting more on, or maybe just the last 2 or 3 days, is also all the other things that will come with that. So one thing is the run itself, because I think all of us, like if you have someone telling you, okay, you're doing 6 miles a day or 10 miles a day, it's easy to, like, all of us, we can go out there, but going to bed early enough to get those hours of sleep or be focusing enough on your nutrition, all of that is something that John hasn't told me that I have to do, but I feel like with that commitment of having a coach, I feel like I should commit more to those things as well. So that is maybe the biggest change.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was self-coached for a long time when I first started taking running seriously. And I guess when I say self-coached, I started doing with Nike Run Club, and then I switched over to Runna. And this past year in 2025, I decided to go with a coach, and I felt the same way, where it was easier to commit because I guess mainly I don't want to let this person down. Like, exactly, this person is spending their time on a Thursday afternoon developing my plan for the week. And if I were just to go out and say, okay, but I think I can run faster on my easy day, so I'm going to run faster, or I am tired from the day I'm not going to run this speed workout. Like, that's just it's a big disrespect, slap in the face to that person. So I'm not going to do that. And so I definitely resonate with that.
But how do you feel like you said there? Because I think that's a very important or a very interesting thing. Like you said, you don't want to disappoint them, and I think that can also become an issue, right? Because you might feel like you're tired or a niggle or like an injury, and you still go through with that workout or that run just because a coach prescribed that run to you.
Yeah.
So how do you go around that?
Yeah. So I do like to stay in constant contact with her, just because, and she's very good. She's a nurse. So my coach, her name is Lauren McGetrick. She's an Austin-based coach, but she is a nurse, so she understands like niggles, and she understands like don't push. But it
Hmm.
does suck sometimes whenever I'm like sick or something, and I'm like I'm not feeling well, but I don't want to disappoint her, and I text her,
Exactly.
and I'm like real nervous when I'm texting her, like, hey, I don't think I can do this today. And but then most of the time she comes back like, oh yeah, you shouldn't run if you're having a sore throat and like,
Hmm.
super drained from this sickness. Please take a seat, and we'll change this to another day. So, but yeah, there's definitely some like nerves there about I don't want to let the person down, but I think she told me once I've been one of her more consistent athletes as far as like hitting her, the runs every
Yeah.
single day. And so I think like it's a little less scary to tell her when something's bad because I know that I'm hitting like 90+% of my runs.
Yeah. No, I think you're right about that. And I also think that it sounds like your coach, just like John for me, my experience has been that if I tell him about something, he will take that seriously. And I feel like it's totally fine. Like today, actually, I had one of those runs where I was supposed to go for a long run, and like halfway through the run or into the run, I was like, now I'm feeling something. There's like some stabbing pain behind my not in my knee, but like just upper part of my calf on the back. So that, like, and it's so hard. It's impossible to say what that is. But I was
Yeah.
like, I've had a really good week of running. I hit my mileage goal that John set for me. And I was like, I can push through this run. No, it's not going to be a problem to get back home and get those miles that he prescribed for me. But I also know that this is about something much bigger than this run today, right? And so
Yeah.
then I don't feel like I'm obligated to do that run or finish that run just because it's on my training plan. And I know that, or I feel very confident that if I called John up, he would tell me, "Hey, just end the run early. We are good here."
Yeah.
But I think that was like, so it's a very good question you're asking, because I feel like looking back when I first talked to John, that was my biggest fear. I was like, what if I struggle with niggles? There are a lot of things, and I will have to keep on telling him, oh, this didn't work out or this didn't work out. But now
Yeah.
this was the first one since we started working together that I actually had to tell him that, or where I have to tell him that, okay, today I wasn't able to finish that run. And I also think that a good coach will prescribe you runs and workouts that he or she will know that you can handle, right? And
Yes.
so that's a very interesting thing. And I had to go a lot of rounds with myself before I kind of decided that, okay, I'm going for this coaching thing, or like having a
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah. I think it's also back to, one time you had Jeff Cunningham on, and Jeff Cunningham was talking about, I think this was on your podcast, or it was on a podcast that I listened to, but he was saying, you know, you can go in and spend $3,000+ to
Yeah.
take the trip to get to the race, and then go out there and you don't execute your plan the way that you're supposed to. Well, you just wasted $3,000.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing in training, because I mean, having a coach isn't cheap. You have to pay a monthly fee for that person to do what they're doing, and to go out there and disrespect them, you're wasting like 150, 250 plus a month,
Yep.
by not following the plan. So they understand if you like, you don't want to like push an injury or something, and then, because then they're going to be like, well, you disrespect me by pushing yourself when you shouldn't.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think that is the case with, and I think that a lot of runners can learn from that. I remember having Jess McLean on, and she said that as soon as she feels something, she will take a day off. She won't even cross train that day. She's like, take a day off, and then usually that will feel better a couple of days later. And I think that is kind of, at least for me, the way I look at it today is like, okay, ending my run earlier, but that will lead to me being able to run again on, say, Tuesday. And maybe even tomorrow already, like if I'm just being good about it today and do some red light therapy that I usually do for a lot of my recovery. But I think that it's all about being smart about it, because if I push through, who knows, maybe I would have to take a week off, and that's definitely not worth it. It's much better to have 2 days off in a short long run than to have a week off but still push through that one long run.
Yeah. So going into your next marathon, you said you're pushing for a sub 240. It was can you remind me of the time again?
Yeah, so my main goal for, at least for the spring, first half of the year, is to run a 238 in Boston.
238.
That is, yeah. So, and that kind of just comes from, I use kilometers, right, when I'm measuring everything. So it's more like an average pace of 345. I guess 343 is 5:59 per mile. So it's like around 6 minutes per mile. It would obviously be awesome if I'm able to do like 5:59 per mile in Boston. That would be really cool. So we'll see where things are. Yeah, how good I am when we get to Boston. But I've had some workouts also this week where I got some confirmations where I'm like, okay, this is looking very good right now.
Yeah, for sure. And Boston's kind of a hard course. I think you've talked about this on your podcast before, but like Boston's a hard course to PR. And I remember I had a guy named Caleb Dale on for my first episode. Mm-hmm. And he said,
I listened to that one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. He was running down one of the roads, and it was just a sea of people, like tons of people in front of him. And he was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this, but he ended up getting a PR. But is that what your memory of it is? Is it hard to kind of maneuver around people?
It's a good question. Yes and no. I think that what's good about Boston is that based on your PR, they will, the corrals and your waves, it will be based on your time. So you are most likely running with people in the same wave that also will have around the same time as you, right? So all of us are going the same pace. I did not feel at all like I was not able to run my pace because of the crowd or the people that I was running around. But I decided to run kind of like, I remember I stuck to the right for a lot of, especially those first 3 to 4 miles. There's a lot of like downhill and rolling hills in the beginning. And I remember that I was just trying to stay on the right, and then I had some space. And I would say that my issue was that I was just running a bit too fast for that like first part of it. But definitely the energy overall, like with the people that you have around you and the crowds on, like people cheering you on, kids, all of that. Also staying, like for me, being on one of the sides, I was able to high five a lot of the kids standing there. And definitely a very unique experience. And I'm sure we'll get back to this, but Boston is hard, but I also feel like if you solve Boston the right way and you're not unlucky with the weather, you will be able to run a pretty fast marathon also in Boston.
Yeah, for sure. The weather in Boston is always like, you never know what you're going to get. It could be raining, it could be hot, it could be, freezing cold. So it's funny to always see that.
Boston in April is obviously, like you said, you have no idea what to expect, so you can't really prepare for it. But I think that one thing that people don't really talk about that much is that because Boston is like point to point and you're just running in one direction, that means that whatever direction the wind is blowing that day, that's what you're gonna have for the whole race, right?
Yeah, that's
So
nice.
well, yes, it's nice, but also not nice because for in a lot of races, like if you, think we talked about my first marathon where it was kind of like a kind of a loop, but I was also running back the same way. That meant that if I had headwind one way, I would have tailwind the other way, and you know, so you would. I'm not sure if that that it will add up at the end, but still, at least you know what to expect, and you get, or not what to expect, but you will get that back if you have you're running against the wind half of the marathon. You can kind of look forward to
For
having
sure.
the wind in your back on the way back. But with Boston, it's like, okay, it's a windy day and it's hitting my face right now. This is
Yeah.
gonna be 26.2 miles of this.
Yes, for
And
sure.
so I think that is also something that is unique about Boston. And I have to kind of remind myself, because especially now that I've done one, and we were very lucky, I would say. I know some people said it was a bit too hot, but personally, I thought it was great this year. But I have to remind myself that when I picture this year's race in 2026, it could be that we get like a 2018 edition of it where it's
Yeah.
just, low 30s and pouring rain.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then hopefully I have an advantage coming from Norway, but it's still, that's gonna be hard, and that's just gonna be about suffering
Yeah.
through the day. And then I think Boston is a completely different experience.
For sure. And I also wanted to ask you a little bit about your training. So when you hired Jonathan Green, you were coming off COVID and kind of a sickness that was derailing your training, and you kind of felt like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to come out of this. And obviously, you've come out of it, and you've been hitting your paces, and you've been thriving in training. But to get out of that and to see it, has it given you kind of some confidence? But also, my question is, does it scare you to think, man, I actually really could hit these high goals in the future? Does that give you a little bit of an anxiety thinking about what's possible?
Oh, that's a very good question, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you on this. First of all, like coming off that, I think that I had more anxiety in terms of, will I be able to run properly again? Like, will my lungs work? Because there were so many weeks of my lungs not working, and I kind of just kept facing these setbacks every day, I felt like.
Yeah.
But then coming back, it's been really weird to see how my fitness has improved in such short amount of time. So I had my first full training week around Thanksgiving, and then I mean that's like just a month away, right? Like we're now in January 4th, so it's like getting closer to a month and a half, I guess, of consistent running. And so I've been, I don't know if scared is the right word, but it's been a bit like, oh, can my legs keep up with this fitness that I have now? Because mechanically, I'm hitting paces that I've never been able to do before, but at an intensity that is not really high, if that makes sense. So like my threshold pace is just so much faster than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And for me, as a very ambitious person, it kind of just changes my goals in terms of, like, I used to have a 225 goal where I was like, that's gonna be like, if I can ever do that, that's gonna be great. Now I'm more like, well, what's this? Who's to say that I can't do a 215? And so
Right.
I think maybe some people would be intimidated by the fact that they're improving and like things like that. To me, it just makes me feel more motivated and makes me feel like things are more realistic in a way.
Yeah, it's interesting when you see those numbers on the watch increasing with less effort. You start to think like there may have been 2 months ago where you thought your ceiling was one thing and you're like, if I get there, that'll be awesome. And then your easy pace suddenly is maybe a minute faster than it used to be. And you're like, well, okay, well, maybe I got something here.
Yeah, I think that's it too. And that's something that John said to me on the phone a couple of weeks ago. And he was like, this also just proves your talent within the sport and as an endurance athlete, that the fitness is so good right now. And I don't remember if I mentioned this in the last episode, but he did say that it's like, this is great, but it's also really bad at the same time, because I'm not strong enough to hit the paces that I'm actually hitting. So I'm strong enough in terms of my capacity, but not mechanically, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought when your aerobic base is stronger than your legs. Like it's,
exactly.
I started, I feel like I've kind of crossed that realm recently myself. And I'm like, man, I got to get in the gym because like I'm not nearly as strong as I need to be for this.
And it's an amazing feeling, right? Like you probably feel really good about it, but then you start almost worrying because you're like, oh, this is a bit too good for, like you said, my strength is not able to keep up with my capacity at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, and I want to transition a little bit back to the Marathon Podcast and the Marathon Podcast sponsorship. So, 2025 was amazing for the Marathon Podcast sponsorship. It seems you helped a lot of people. Some people may have had a little bit of help already, and in other people, it sounds like this was like almost life-changing for their running career. How does that make you feel as someone who just started a podcast and just started into the running space to be able to give back so much? And what is your plan for the sponsorship in 2026?
Yeah, so just quickly, the Marathon Podcast sponsorship, I like talking to a lot of athletes, and also coming from sports myself, I really wanted to support those athletes who have big goals and they might not have a sponsorship yet. So one of the things that I found to be hardest was like you said, some people had support already, and it was hard for me to know who did, because it's not super transparent. So it's hard to know, okay, does this person have that, or does this person have that? And sometimes it could have been that they didn't, or that they did have some support already, and then you could argue that they wouldn't have been like in that group of people that I would want to have on. But I feel like I landed on a set of very good athletes that I sponsored. And I think that, like when you said life-changing, I think that maybe the most life-changing aspect of this was not the money itself, because it wasn't like each athlete didn't get that much. I think we ended up at like $15,000 in total for the sponsorship, but that was obviously then like some athletes got $1,000, some got $1,500, some got $2,000. Like I was trying to figure that one out. So I think the life-changing part of it could have been that for some of the athletes who'd never been sponsored before, they felt like they were seen, that someone saw their potential, and that helped a lot. And it could cover like a training camp or whatever. So, I mean, the reason I'm able to do that is because of my filmmaking and photography business. So like the podcast is owned by my LLC. And so with that, it's like Wild Studio is my company. And that is why I'm able to do that. So it doesn't really, the sponsorship it's not reflecting how well the podcast is doing per se.
Yeah.
But I've been very transparent on the fact that this sponsorship is, yes, I want to help athletes. So like if we said that 50% of it is that, and then the other 50% is that this is a marketing strategy. Like
Yeah, for sure.
I want to be that podcast that sponsors athletes, and I want people to know about that. And so it's like a win-win, I think, for the athletes and for me.
Yeah.
And it did mean a lot. I also, luckily, at the end of the year, when looking back at all the, because like to me, $15,000 is a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
giving out $15,000, and I remember thinking that, well, even if I don't get anything back from this, it's been so much fun because you see people, like you said, it means a lot to them and they're very happy about it.
Yeah.
And that makes me happy as well. And I don't want to come off as like, oh, he's such a good guy doing this because it is a marketing strategy. But luckily, it also made me very happy and kind of, so even if it didn't work from a strategy perspective, which I don't know, I will never really know if it works or not. But I was still happy with it. And in terms of for 2026, I haven't decided yet, or I don't know yet if it's possible to do that. I have some hats that I've made that I've said that the profit from that will go to the Marathon Podcast sponsorship. So I have 500 hats that I've made with I don't know. Do you know how you pronounce that name of that brand? It's like
I
CL.
I
Yeah.
think it's CLE maybe, but I'm not
CLE,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like one of the most popular brands in terms of running hats, and made a very like minimalistic hat. And that is not for me to make money on. It's more like I wanted a hat and I wanted to
Yeah.
design it myself. And then I was like, okay, let's use that for the sponsorship. So if I can make money on that, that's going to go directly back to the sponsorship. So if
Yeah.
I sell all of those hats, then then I know that I can do that. And then other than that, it's going to depend on how well the podcast is doing and how well my company is doing. Because I'm hoping to transition more into the podcast being a full-time thing and spend less time doing my normal job.
Yeah.
And with that ambition as well, it might be harder to be like, oh, here's another 15,000. So I need to figure that out. And I also need to figure out a different way of like people applying for it or people applying for others, figuring out more of their backstories. Because as of right now, it's been more like me hearing people's stories, and usually not really during the episode, but like people talking to me before and after recording. And I'm like, okay, cool. And some of them were also other athletes reaching out saying like, hey, this person really deserves it, or you should look into that. So I hope that answered your question. It's kind of like unknown what the future will bring, but I really,
Yeah.
really hope that I can keep doing it in 2026.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I think even it's so different from obviously from like mainstream professional sports like football, basketball, what have you. You can look up their contracts on something and see how much money they make, and you're like, well, that guy's probably good. He wouldn't need something. And it's even so different from like cycling. I think cycling is a little more polished in that regard, as far as sponsorships people get and contracts. It is hard to like know who's sponsored, who's not,
Yeah,
who's
definitely.
yeah, because there's so many runners who are fast and who are in that elite category who make $0 from their running.
Yeah, and it's also like if you look at, if we use $1,000 as an example, if you come from a family with a lot of money and they are backing your sport, like that is great. It's amazing if you have a family that's like able to support you. But
Yeah.
for me, I wouldn't know that either. Like I obviously have no idea about your finances. It could be that you are totally fine and that $1,000 wouldn't really make that big of a difference to you. Or it could be that made you really relax for at least a month.
Yeah.
So those things are, I can never ask people about that. And that's where it's a bit harder. And I think that's where that application process will be more important going forward, to not ask how much money are you making? Not at all, but kind of just get more of a feel of how much do you need it? What is it that you want to use it for? Because, and I don't want to like tell people that they should write this if they're applying for it, but you know, if I understand or see that there's an athlete who's barely able to buy themselves dinners, but they're running like 150 miles per week and trying their best to reach their goals, then that is definitely gonna make it easier for me to make that decision compared to someone who's like staying at the fanciest hotels and we're like, oh yeah, but I don't have any sponsors. But it's like, okay, but it seems like you're pretty good regardless, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's like you almost have to pick up on context clues the way that you've been doing it now. Like maybe they're, you know.
Yeah, and it's like my fiance, she was also telling me that, or she kind of warned me when I started this, that just know that you're gonna get messages from people, and people are gonna be like, hey, I have this, like, do you want to sponsor me? And that has happened, right? Like people are reaching out, and totally understandable. I think that I would have done the same thing, but it's also not that easy. It's like I can't just be like, oh, okay, you're also running. Here is like $1,000 or $2,000. I think that for me, but also for the runners, it needs to be transparent and it needs to be more of an application process, because then people will probably understand more about it. And then there are so many stories out there, you know, people who have very nice stories about how their running started or what their careers are like. And it's gonna be hard for me, and it has been hard for me this year too, to be like, okay, I'm cutting it here. Because if I could, I would have sponsored all of the guests that I've had on, because they're just amazing people, but I can't because I don't have endless money.
Yeah. It's one of those things. If we had an infinite bank account, we would just give it to everybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, so in 2026 for your running, you're hoping to you're going to do Boston, and I'm sure you have some other races planned. But you also have a lot of races planned with big marathons with the Marathon Podcast. I've heard some shakeouts and things like that. So is that how exciting is that for you? And can you talk a little bit about what you've got planned for that in 2026?
Yeah, so I'm doing way too many marathons in 26. I'm starting the year or the marathon year with the Tokyo Marathon on the 1st of March. And then I have Boston, and then I'm doing Sydney, and then I'm doing Berlin, and then I've also signed up for Valencia at the end of the year.
Wow.
That being said, I'm not planning on racing them like all out, all of them. I really hope that I can still run a PR in Tokyo, but I'm also hoping that when I get to 1st of March that I'm in the kind of shape where I can run a fast marathon, but I can do that as like, say, a 90% effort, so that I can use it more as a great training run for Boston, as Boston is my main goal.
Yeah.
And to your question, I think that, or I kind of hope, and I do think that it's going to be a very different experience going to these major marathons now in 2026 compared to 2025. I'm not at all like a big name in the running community. Like it's not, I mean, I know more people now than I did last year, but I don't know that many people, and I don't think that many people will know or recognize me. But I do think that it's going to be a bit different, because some people will know me and some people will want to connect, which I'm very happy and excited about. And I do have planned some shakeout runs in Tokyo, in Boston. We'll probably do the same in Sydney. I also have a collab with Sydney that's coming up on the podcast.
Oh, nice.
With TCS Sydney Marathon. And so it's going to be much more fun, because I'm going to feel more a part of that running community, I think. And I'm very, very excited about that. But I also have no idea for those shakeout runs if we're are we gonna be two people running, like me, my fiance, and a couple of others, or will we be like a big group, and we'll see. But I'm really hoping that it's gonna be bigger, and I'm very excited to see, what the podcast and everything will result in terms of those those marathons as well.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I think what you're doing with the sponsorship, with the shakeout runs, with the collaborations like this, it's helping your brand, and it's going to kind of bring more. And we talked about this last time, where you said, I don't really focus fully on the numbers. I really just focus on like building this, kind of doing something to build it a little bit more, doing something, and just the tasks. And I think all of these is exactly what that's what that is. You're building those little tasks that are going to build it into something special. So I'm excited to keep listening and keep following.
Thank you. No, I'm very excited about that as well. And I think that a part of, and I'm sure you're thinking about these things as well, is like part of having a podcast, and you get to a point like where, okay, now my numbers are stable here. And then you might not see that incline or like that progress for a while. And then, at least for me, I'm always asking myself the question, okay, so now what? Like, what can I do, or what should I do to make that next step, or like get that next big peak? And I think we can talk about that like with running as well. Like, it's, you get to a point where you've been doing something, and obviously that has been you must have been doing some right things if you are running a PR. But then you will get to a point where your body might need some different stimuli and in different ways, right? Of like, okay, so now I've been following this plan for 3 or 4 months, and my body's been responding very well to that. But then your body gets used to that as well. And there are a lot of theories on this in terms of your body needing that change to make that next kind of giant leap, if you call it that. And I think that is something to always look into. And it doesn't need to be big things, but it could be that if you've been doing 10 by K every week, like maybe mix it up and do something else, maybe something a little bit faster, not because that faster is so good, like from a science perspective, but more just for your body to be like, oh, this was new, I need to adapt to this, because we get used to things. Like if we were put in a prison cell tomorrow, it would be horrible. But if we were there for 30 days, it would be less horrible after 30 days, because you kind of get used to it, and so on and so on, right? Not saying that I want to be in a prison cell at all, but it's just I do think that, or I've heard a lot of stories about that, right? Like you just get used to it, and okay, this is what it's like now, and then I'm just gonna adapt to that. Yeah,
no, for sure. I feel like I've been kind of stuck in that stimulus, like where I'm needing new stimulus for my 5K lately. I've been trying to break 20 minutes in the 5K for the past like 2 years, and it's like my marathon time keeps coming down, and my half marathon time, and even my 10K slightly, but 5K I've been like 2040, 2030, 2050, you know, and I'm like, man, like, are we ever going to break 20? So I'm in that right now. And as far as my podcast goes, like, yeah, I'm kind of thinking about like next steps and things to grow it, and also like when to grow it. You know what I mean? Like, am I at a number right now where I can, start reaching out to people and maybe doing some collaboration? So that's an interesting thought about like when should you do that? When do you feel like you're ready? So I'm still looking to see when that happens, but
Yeah, but it's hard, right? Like you have to do it at your own pace as well, whether that is the frequency of your episodes or whatever, because I remember when I made it, I started with 1 episode a week, and then I had 2, and now I have 3. And it's like, first of all, for me, having 3 episodes a week and all of them being with guests, that kind of like logistically, that is hard. And time-wise, that can be hard. I have a job and all of that, but if I didn't feel like I was ready to do 3 episodes a week, I would probably burn out, and I probably wouldn't be able to keep that up. And then I might disappoint my listeners. So then it's much better to have 1 episode a week if that's all you have time and resources for. And so I think, like you said, finding that time or timing that next step, it's crucial to being able to do that.
Yeah. It's like, you know, in my head, I could be like, oh, I'm going to go out and have 3 guests a week. You know what I mean? And, you know, I think, oh, I can try. And then, or I can do that. And then I start trying and I'm not ready. And I'm like, well, now I'm burnt out and the podcast dies. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely, you have to plan that kind of mentally and on paper before you make a jump like that.
Yeah, you have to be so mentally ready for all of those changes or increases, like that being more work in general, or you're running. Like for me now, I'm hoping that 2026 will be the year where I do have 2 trainings a day, like, but not necessarily always running. It can be cross training, so I can do my second training on the bike, whatever. But just like now I feel like I'm ready to do that. I'm ready to get back to that. And I don't really like New Year's resolutions, but it's kind of like, it's a new year, it's a new beginning. That is a chance for me to be like, okay, from now on, I'm going to start doing that. And now I have time for that. Like if I look 3 or 4 years back when I was building my business and I spent almost every hour of the day trying to build that, I barely had time to work out at all. So it's all about timing. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and you know, it's also, I'd like to say, like, you do want to always try new things. So like, you shouldn't be scared of trying new things. A caveat there of like, you know, if you think you're ready, go ahead and try. If you weren't ready, then maybe you can start walking that back later. But, you know, always, if you feel like you're ready for a change or for something that's going to help you, go for it and just kind of see what happens. Don't be scared of taking the next step, you know? No, I totally agree. I think that it's like you said, you have to be ready, but it should also scare you a little bit.
It should.
Because then I think you have the perfect balance. It's like, can I do this? Maybe. Yeah, I think I can. That's probably the perfect starting point.
Probably good enough. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Well, so cool. Well, I think that's everything that I had to ask you for part 2, but thank you so much again. And I see that you're still in Boston. So are you heading back to Oslo soon, or are you staying in Boston for a little longer?
Actually, we're going to a wedding in the Dominican Republic this week, or next week. And so we're spending a few more days here, and then we're going there, and then a couple of days in Boston again after. But that is just kind of just to make that travel back a bit easier. And then, back to Norway mid-January.
Mid-January. Okay, cool. Man, the that'll be fun. Dominican Republic, I think.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, still should be good weather there, so.
I think so. Finally, some sun. I was looking at my skin when I was on that track, and I was like, oh, wow, it looks like I've been like somewhere where it's only been snow and like darkness, which kind of makes sense coming from Norway. We don't have much daylight in December. Yeah,
we are here in Texas. Typically January, February is when the winter like really hits us. But I looked at the forecast for the next 10 days, and it's still supposed to be in like the 70s, with a couple of days of 50s and rainy. But I'm like hoping we can hang on to this like weird spring weather that we've got going on, at least through my marathon, because I'm like, if I get a snowy day on my marathon, I'm going to be really sad.
I was thinking about this yesterday because I've been listening to a podcast with a couple of cross-country skiers, because obviously in Norway, cross-country skiing is a big thing. And they were talking about how there's like less snow now than it used to be. And like they were talking about whether or not it was like, they were fearing for the sport and the future of the sport because of less snow. And I remember, or I was thinking like, yeah, it is sad because I loved playing in the snow when I grew up, and still snow is fun, but then I was like, well, for me now, running wise, I actually do appreciate that it's not. But I don't know if that is like that probably is a bit too selfish, because you don't want the earth to boil over. So you kind of
Yeah, it's like, can we, like, us runners, we want the snow when on our rest days, on our off
Yeah.
days, but we
Yeah.
want it to all go away when we're running.
Exactly. No, so I was like, my fiance's mom, she has a barn here on the property, and I was like, maybe I should get a treadmill there, but it's going to be very expensive to get a treadmill to have in there for the few weeks we are here during the year, and in the summer I'm obviously running outside, so it doesn't really make sense.
Somebody should like develop a mobile treadmill to where you could just like pull it out.
Put it in the backpack.
Yeah, that'd be like $1 million, maybe $100,000 idea.
We're laughing at it now, but like in 10 years time, I'm sure that's what we're all going to bring with us.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kristian. I really appreciate this, and thank you for coming back for a part 2.
No, thank you, and great job. Keep doing what you're doing. So
thank you.
Yeah,
same
stay
to
in
you.
touch. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
And that was part 2 of my conversation with Kristian Warwick. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, if you liked this, please give it a share, a follow, a review, comment, wherever you listen to your podcast. It really helps. It really makes a difference. And with that, I will see you guys next week.